What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Thoughts. I'm your host, Gio Galvez, and it feels good to be back. If you guys haven't noticed from the last video that I posted, I took quite a bit of a break, some family vacation, just took some time from getting back into rolling to filming and doing all this stuff. But I'm trying to get that trend going again. And we're starting off with this video. As you can see from the title, it says NFC North Divisional Record Prediction. And yeah, I'm starting off my NFL record prediction. I wanted to do this earlier in the summer, but draft even from the draft to preseason, kind of the camps and everything going on, trades and everything, players moving around. I decided to kind of wait off and wait up as much as I could to this point here. But even though there's still a lot of talks going on, like as of right now, from when I'm filming this, Brandon Ayuk. It looks like he's most likely going to stay with the Niners, most likely going to sign a contract extension. But the Steelers were almost there to get him in a trade that all they needed was the Niners to say yes to it. But that going on, and news that came out today: one, JJ McCarthy out for the season as he needed to get surgery on his knee because of a major discomfort. Turned out he had a major problem. He's out for the season, so Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback for the Vikings this year. And Jordan Addison got carted off today. Looking at the report, Kevin O'Connell does not think it is a major ankle injury where he's going to be out for the entire season. However, they do not know until when he will be back. So it's a lot of ups and downs in that, and kind of did change a little. Maybe in some parts of the prediction, but we're gonna start off with that. So just letting you guys know, it's gonna be about 8 episodes, so one per division, and we're just gonna get going like that. Start off how I'm doing this, just so you guys know, is I'm giving my wins and loss records per team in the order that I think they're gonna get. So the first team that you're gonna see as I get into it, that's the team I think is gonna win the division, and then the second and third and then last, as we're gonna go really into it. So I think you guys will catch on pretty quick. So let's just get right into it, shall we? Starting off, as you could kind of see in the top left corner, I have the Detroit Lions winning the NFC North once again. They looked really good last season. They were really surprising. Not a lot of teams really expected them to get first. They probably had the Vikings, but due to injuries and stuff with the Vikings and the Detroit Lions playing very good football, they got first last season. And myself, I have them holding to the high standard where I think they're going to be an even better team this season for it. So just real quick, kind of pointing out last season of how the Detroit Lions went. They went 12-5 over on the regular season with the loss in the NFC Championship game to the 49ers. But they had a really good playoff run, beating the Los Angeles Rams in the first round of the playoffs, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second round. But to make it easier, I'll only tell you there are 5 losses that the Lions had last season. Was a loss to Seattle in overtime, a loss to Baltimore, a loss to Green Bay and on Thanksgiving Day, a loss to Chicago, and a loss to the Dallas Cowboys. So right here, looking at this season, I think it's a slight easier. I don't want to say easier. I think, but it's a very doable and winnable schedule for the Lions. We're starting off. They are hosting the Los Angeles Rams once again, and Matt Stafford will be going back to Detroit for this game. And I think the Detroit Lions open off the season with a win. They're going to beat the Lions once again. We saw the game was pretty close in the playoffs last season. I think it'll be another close game this year, especially seeing Kyron Williams coming back for the Rams, Puka Nacua, now Cooper Kupp as well. But the Lions added major help on the secondary defense for them, as that was a major problem for them last season. So they added help on that. They continue to have a great front defense for them, and they're beefing up a bit more on the O-line for the offense to give Jared Goff some help and protection, and to be able to expand more on the run with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. However, it was said a couple of days ago, just want to point out, Jahmyr Gibbs is injured and completely not sure when he'll be coming back. As well as Sam Laporta, their tight end, who had a really good season last year. Unexpected step up. But anyways, moving on. Right after that, they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I think a team that will also be a bit of a challenge for the Lions, but it's not a team that will give them too much problems. I think the Lions will be able to step up defensively and lock down Evans and Chris Godwin. Of course, you had White. Is the Lions going to be able to stop the run game? I think for the most part they'll be able to hold them off. So see how they and then how they're gonna rush Baker Mayfield. I think this is gonna be another win for the Detroit Lions. Then after that, they fly to Arizona to play against the Cardinals, who just had the number 4 overall pick, adding Marvin Harrison Jr. to the team. He's gonna be a great wide receiver. He's gonna be the star franchise wide receiver for many years to come if it works out. But in this game, Arizona's still trying to figure out a lot, trying to get Kyler Murray and Marvin to mesh together, be ready for the season. This is an early, it's the third game of the season, so it's still gonna be a lot of time, I think, for them to get together. And because of this, even still having the team that the Arizona's kind of trying to bring back from last season, I think it's still not going to be enough. Arizona's still going to have a tough season, and that's another win for the Detroit Lions. Now, for Week 4, they go back home to Ford Field, in which they will host the Seattle Seahawks. A game that was really good. The Lions only got the loss in the overtime, but it was a really good game. I think this time the Lions are a much better team, and without Gibbs, which I think was going to be a big part of it, we're going to see a lot more running with David Montgomery, a lot more targets to Amara as well as Jamison. And hopefully Laporta's back by then, and we're going to see him getting a lot of looks as well. I think the Lions get this win here and get payback for last season's loss. After the Seattle game, week 5, they have a bye week, as you see. They get to rest quite early on into the season. Looking back, having 4 wins, first 2 a bit tough, but it'd be a very good 4 wins for the Lions. However, it's going to be very tough for them throughout the rest of the season, as you see as week 6 to 18. There's no rest. It's just constant going. So it's going to be a tough season, but I think they could do it. Just, given the team that they have. Week 6, they're back at it, going to Texas, going to Arlington to go against the Dallas Cowboys in a game that, one, is going to be a very good game. We saw the Lions lost to them last season, but I thought it should have been smart for Dan Campbell to kick that field goal, go to overtime, and win it there. Of course, we know Dan Campbell doesn't really like to kick as field goals as much. He prefers going for it on 4th down, which I respect, which I like as well. But in this scenario, we saw they had to do it 3 times, and I think it just to be safe, should have got the one and gone. But this is a different Dallas team. As of right now, CeeDee Lamb has not signed the extension. He has not gone back to practice. It's kind of expected that before week 1 he will sign the extension. He will be back at practice, but as of right now, we don't know. So this is a Dallas team that, 1, doesn't have the star receiver, 2, doesn't have a really good running back room, as your best veteran running back is Zeke coming back after a season in New England. You have Ferguson coming off as your tight end, is one of your main targets, but who's a star player and who's Dak going to be able to throw to on the offensive side? So I think this is a game that Detroit Lions, if CD is not playing, they have to take advantage of it. And I think they will. I think the Detroit Lions get a win and starting off a nice 5-game win streak here. And then coming the following week, they go to Minnesota, the first divisional game of the season against the Minnesota Vikings. And like I mentioned earlier, Jordan Addison got carted out. JJ McCarthy, who, by this time, it was kind of predicted by week 6, 7, maybe week 5. The Vikings, JJ McCarthy was most likely going to be named the starter by then. However, he's out for the season, so we're going to see some Sam Hart. We're going to see some Sam Darnold in this situation here. But going on with it, Hawkinson's out, and it's projected he's not going to be ready by week 1, but who knows? By week 7, most likely he's going to be back here, so he's going to be one of the targets. That does help out with Justin Jefferson having not all defense on him. Now you have some defense on Hawkinson. They do have Aaron Jones, who was really good with the Packers. Last season wasn't his best season overall due to injuries and stuff like that. How is he going to do with the Minnesota Vikings? I don't think he's going to go back to his peak level of playing. And so I think it's not going to be a very good season for the Minnesota Vikings. And I think the Lions overall are just going to have the better team. Meaning it's going to be a win for the Detroit Lions. And then right after that, they host back at home in Detroit. They host the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans not looking like a good team this year. They're going to be kind of refreshed, restarting. How's this team going to run with it? I think it's going to be nice to see, especially with their first round pick, JC Latham, add into it. It's going to give some protection to Will Levis. But as of right now, I had the Detroit Lions getting that win. That should not be a problem at all for the Detroit Lions. Now, this is where things start shaking up. Week 9. Now, in my predictions here, I'm not trying to be biased at all. I'm trying to be very unbiased, and you will see how I have this going on. Week 9 in Lambeau Field, the Detroit Lions will be away going against the Green Bay Packers, in which last season in Lambeau Field, the Detroit Lions won, and then Detroit lost at home. I think it's gonna be flipped the other way around this season. I think now this is a Green Bay team where they kind of found themselves, and I'll talk more about it as we get to them. Completely different Green Bay team. I think the Lions are still good, still able to compete with them, still be able to even possibly win this game. But on this one, I have the Detroit Lions getting their first loss of the season, the first divisional loss as well, and ending their run of a 7 game win streak going on for the 8th. I think it ends right here. I think the Packers get that win. And it doesn't get any better for the Detroit Lions with the Houston Texans adding Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs being the bigger name on this. CJ Stroud having a phenomenal rookie season, having more weapons now to work with. I think the Detroit Lions, after having a tough game against the Green Bay Packers, and now they also have to travel to Houston right after that loss. It's going to be a bit much for the Detroit Lions on this one. I think the Houston Texans get the win. Detroit gets their second loss of the season. But after that, the Detroit Lions get back right on track as they go back home, host the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that essentially there's no wide receiver 1. There's just wide receiver 2 and a rookie. They have Travis Etienne. They have Travis Etienne as the starting right back with Tank Bigsby right behind. They have Trevor Lawrence, of course. But your wide receiver room, you have Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis from the Bills, and then you have Brian Thomas, the rookie, coming out. And then, of course, you have tight end Evan Ingram. It all looks well, but I think the Detroit Lions are the much better team on this scenario. I think offensively, the Detroit Lions will just get more on the score. Defensively, I think it'll be back and forth for the Lions, but Lions get the win, get back on track for this one. And then right after that, they go to Indianapolis. Again, a young team. Talk more about them when I get to them, but a young team in which they're trying to get Donnie Mitchell involved. The first round pick was on the defensive side without Latu, so it's not much help on the offense. And now they're seeing how Anthony Richardson is going to be healthy this season and be able to get to this game. Even with all that going on, I still have the Lions getting the win on this one. So another win add to it. Now, week 13, at home at Ford Field, the Detroit Lions are hosting the Chicago Bears, their first, their first look at this new Chicago Bear with more weapons, loaded weapons, with the number 1 pick in Caleb Williams. Divisional game is going to be a big time game here. I think the Detroit Lions still get the win here because with all the weapons, and by now Caleb Williams should be getting should have already some type of comfortability and being that starting quarterback and establish themselves with the record that they're going to have. I think the Lions are still just overall the better team. By now, I expect Gibbs to be back for already maybe 4 or 5 weeks in. If the injury wasn't as bad. 4 or 5 weeks in already for Gibbs to be back. This should be a major game for the Detroit Lions using all their weapons, all their ability. I think the Lions get the win here. And just already looking at the record, they're establishing themselves as number 1 team in the NFC North here. Then after that, week 14, another divisional game for the Detroit Lions as now they are hosting the Green Bay Packers. And like I mentioned for the first match between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, I think it's going to be flipped. So now the Detroit Lions are going to get revenge. They're going to get payback. They're going to get a win against the Green Bay Packers at home, because now I think they're going to be able to game plan much better for this Packers team, for Jordan Love. Then the Detroit Lions get the revenge, get the win right here. After that, week 15, a Buffalo Bills, which is definitely not the same Buffalo Bills last year when it comes to the wide receiver room and some players coming and going. We saw a lot of movement in the offseason for the Bills. But the biggest one, they don't have their two receivers that they had last year, with Gabe Davis going to Jacksonville, Stephon Diggs going to Houston. Now they have Curtis Samuel as their said veteran, who is the number two, who's most likely going to be the number one this year. We're going to see Dalton Kincaid get a lot more looks at the tight end position. He's going to be a major uptick in targets, but also Keon Coleman getting involved much more. But because of all this uncertainty and how this season is going to go, the Detroit Lions are going to be the better team, have the better players, have the better chemistry, and the system that they're in. The Detroit Lions getting another win. Now, and within a 4-game span, this is the third divisional game, this time in Chicago at Soldier Field. I'll talk about the Chicago Bears when we get to them in this episode. My thing is, I still think the Lions are the best team. I still think the Lions are the stronger team. They are the better team. I do think, and a lot of these I didn't mention as I got to the games, but I think in a lot of these games, the Lions will have a close one, especially in games like against Los Angeles, Tampa Bay, Seattle, somewhat Dallas, Green Bay, Houston, and Jacksonville. I think they're going to be close games, but against Chicago, the second time might be close. I don't think the first game is going to be close. Second game might be a bit close, but like I said, I still think the Lions are the best ones. And by now, depending on how the rest of the division goes, the Lions are going to want to secure the first in the division. And by their record, with only 2 losses right now, they're going to try to get that first seed in the conference. They could take no losses. They want to get the wins here. So because of that, I think and I predict the Detroit Lions will get the win in Chicago and to continue their run and trying to get that bye week for the first week of the playoffs. But week 17, the hardest challenge I think the Detroit Lions will face this year in San Francisco. In Santa Clara against the San Francisco 49ers, and which a team that everyone's predicting to for sure make the NFC Conference Championship game again, and most likely make the Super Bowl once again, as their window's closing. But the team that they have, very good. It's very expected them to go. The Detroit Lions will face a challenge. They were last year in the playoffs. They had the lead on the Niners. They blew it. This year, I think. Well, one, it's obvious the Niners are facing a lot of injuries, especially on the defense, and then issues on the offensive side, like with the Ayuk situation, what's going on. If Ayuk stays, they're still crazy strong team. If he gets traded, depending on what players they get, how much of a difference does it make? But on the Lions, it's can they defend Christian McCaffrey? Can they defend George Kittle, Deebo Samuels, and let's say Ayuk, because he's still technically on the team, he still has 1 more year on the contract. How they're gonna be able to defend him again and not blow that lead that they had last year on them. So because of that and how close this, I think it's gonna be about a 3-point game on this one. I have the Detroit Lions losing against San Francisco 49ers and being their last loss of the season. And with the final game of the season, the Detroit Lions are hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I have, and I'm setting it on this, that the Detroit Lions are going to win this game. However, because this is done a lot, this one's a 50-50 flip on it, only because, not because of the talent or playing or whatever. I'm still sticking to the Lions winning, but we all know there's a chance that this one, the Lions kind of just give as a win for Minnesota, as in they do not start Amon-Ra, they do not start David Montgomery, they do not start Jahmyr Gibbs or Sam Laporta or half of their defense or Jared Goff or these players on there. They don't start their starters at all. By now you already have the playoff picture, whether you're the first or the second seed in the NFC Conference. You already won the NFC North. Looking at all of this, do you kind of just let it go? However, depending on how the other teams are doing, in the NFC North in the conference, this might be a big win. So, in saying this, this might be a game that the Lions want to win just to secure that first, in case the Packers or the Vikings are right in the tail. They're only one game behind or so, and this could flip on them. The Lions could, you know, do that, or they could say, "Hey, we have a nice, comfortable lead. There's no way the Packers or the Vikings catch up, even with this win, a loss for us. We're gonna, do whatever. Vikings get the win." But on this one, I do have Detroit Lions. So overall, I have the Detroit Lions going 14-3 with the overall record, with a 5-1 record in the division, with those records possibly changing with a one loss or so with that last game against the Minnesota Vikings, where it would have been 13-4 overall with the 4-2 record, if staying with that situation. That's how it's looking right now for the Detroit Lions. Another win, another back-to-back win of the NFC North. Moving on, we have the Green Bay Packers. I'm trying to be unbiased here, so if you guys think, oh, of course, put the Green Bay Packers, but think about it. Come on, look at it and look at the other teams, and I'll give my reasons why. But I have the Green Bay Packers getting number 2 in the division. Last season, looking at it, the Packers went 9-8. Bit iffy on it, honestly. There's teams that the Packers should have beaten. There's teams that kind of surprised that the Packers did beat. So, I guess you take what you could get. But this season is expected of Jordan Love and the team to do so much better. Especially with Christian Watson supposed to be coming back now. We're supposed to have a very healthy wide receiver core with Christian Watson back, Romeo Dobbs, Jalen Reed, or even Tavion Wicks, who did very good when Christian Watson was out. And then now we have the addition of Josh Jacobs in the running back and Xavier McKinney on the defensive side of the ball. So it's a lot of expectations this year for the Packers. I'm looking at it, and I think the only reason why the possibility of them getting the record that I'm going to give them is because of I think the schedule is easier than some of the challenges. Packers could have more challenges in their schedule, but I think this year it was a bit easier. But looking at it this year, but looking at last year's losses, they lost to the Falcons, they lost to the Lions, lost to the Raiders, lost to the Broncos, lost to the Vikings, lost to the Steelers, lost to the Giants, lost to the Buccaneers. And they lost in the second round to the San Francisco 49ers after beating the Dallas Cowboys in the first round. Starting off, this game will be in Brazil. It started off on a Friday, not a Thursday, not a Sunday, not a Monday, but a Friday. That's going to be very cool. I do have work a bit early on that day, but I should be able to get out on time to watch the beginning of that game, or at least miss 2 minutes from kickoff. So I should be able to watch this game on it. But the first game of the season will be in Brazil, and it's against the Philadelphia Eagles. This game, it does say that the Packers are hosting, not a host team, but this game was actually in Brazil. What pretty sure a lot of people already know, a lot of you guys already know, but if you do not, they're playing in a stadium where the color green is banned due to the soccer team that plays there. The rivals have the color green. So the fans, the stadium, it all became a rule that the color green is banned from that stadium. Very interesting as you put the two teams with green in them. But after looking at some new helmet and jersey reveals from the Packers, looks like they're going to have an all-white uniform, all-white helmet. It looks so clean, and I think part of it was because of the situation. But it looks very clean, and most likely they're going to use that. And for the Eagles, who knows which one they're going to use, because a lot of the uniforms have green in them. But we're about to see what they're going to use. So this game, I think it will be a very tough, nice opening game for the Green Bay Packers. And they're going to start the season a little tough, as the Packers will get the loss against the Eagles team that still has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and just added Saquon Barkley to this team. I don't think the Packers defense is going to be able to stop all those weapons on the offense. So offensively, I think the Packers are also going to struggle a bit. The Philadelphia Eagles did add some secondary help, and they're still one of the better defenses in the league. So the Packers are going to struggle quite a bit in this game. So first loss of the season for the Packers. However, they get right on track as they then go home and host the Indianapolis Colts. Again, I mentioned them earlier. Still young team, still trying to get everything moving. Donovan Mitchell, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor there. Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman are still great players. How's that all going to mesh? I think the Packers are more fit and have the better chemistry there. Packers are going to get the first win of the season here. After that, they go to Nashville, Tennessee to go against the Tennessee Titans in a game that should not be a challenge for the Packers at all. I think the Packers get their second win of the season. Now, week 4, the first divisional game of the season for them against the Minnesota Vikings at Lambeau Field. A game that at first I had the Vikings winning. I really did. I thought the Vikings might catch the Packers off guard in this game, and the Packers just, after coming off 2 wins, they're like, a little head high rush, and this was going to humble them down. However, now looking, Jordan Addison might be out for a bit. There's no for sure in saying that Hawkins will be back by then. I think there's a good estimated time by this week or the following week he will be back. So he's not back. Really, all you have is Aaron Jones, who I gave my opinion about, and Justin Jefferson is still great. But if you have Jair Alexander, Justin Jefferson, and even McKinney just float over the top watching just in case to cover, it's not going to be much, I don't think, for the Vikings to be able to do. So I have the Green Bay Packers getting the third win of the season here on it. And then right after, they come to LA to then get the Los Angeles Rams in a game that I think will be very close between the Rams and the Packers. The Rams added some nice defense from Florida State University. Their first round picks added right here. Sorry, the first round pick and their second round pick added right here. Like I said, it's gonna be great to see Puka, Cup, and Williams, and how this offense is gonna run again. However, I think the Packers get a 3-point win on this one. Very close game, could go either way, but it's a 3-point win for the Packers. Then after that, they go back home and they host the Arizona Cardinals. I gave my opinion on them. Shouldn't be a chance for the Green Bay Packers. That's another win for the Packers. Now, this is where the win train comes to halt for the Packers. In a very close game for these Packers, and it's going to be a much of a challenge like the Eagles are to the Packers. The main thing here is going to be the Packers defense. How are they going to be able to handle this Houston Texans offense with the weapons that they have? Well, was Schultz, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon. 5 weapons, 5 chances where the ball could go anywhere. How's this defense going to handle that? I think it's going to be we're going to see a couple holes, a couple struggles, things we need to work on defense. And for that, I think the Houston Texans give the Green Bay Packers a second loss of the season. That would be 2 L's for the Packers. Week 8, the Packers are going to go down to Jacksonville in a game that I think, once again, Packers are going to have a bit of a struggle due to the weapons on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm not saying they're great weapons, like I said, they're more wide receivers too there, but I think it's a bit much on the defense on it. And I think the Jacksonville Jaguars give the Packers a 3rd loss of the season. That's back-to-back losses right here. I think both games will be really close. I think Houston probably wins by a touchdown, and I think Jacksonville wins by 3 points on it. However, Green Bay finds himself coming back for week 9, right before the bye week. You need to get something going here just to have a nice break, something to hold your head on. And I think the Packers do get it as they go back home to host the Detroit Lions. And I think this game, the Packers, after seeing their mistakes, seeing everything going on, they're going to be a bit tired. But I think this is the one that they know they have to pull off because they have rest right after. I think they get a win against the Detroit Lions here. And just helps them out, boost them around. Week 10, a nice bye week time, middle of the season. You had a lot to work on. You have a lot to look back on. And you have just the half of the season to go back and say, okay, this is what we could do in the half season. And you start by week 11, you're going back. This time you're going to Chicago to get your 3rd divisional rival game against the Chicago Bears, in which they'll get the first look of Caleb Williams and that whole offense team. talk about it with the Bears, but all I'm going to say is the Bears will be the Bears until proven otherwise. And saying that, I think the Packers come off the bye week with a nice W for week 11. But right after that, it's not looking so good. The Green Bay Packers go back home to host the San Francisco 49ers. And like we said, we know what the expectations of the Niners are. By then, I expect quite a few of their injured players to come back by now. They're going to still have a loaded team. This Packer defense still finding themselves. I think they're going to be better, but not the best yet. And because of this, I think the San Francisco 49ers give the Green Bay Packers their fourth loss of the season here. And the Packers go on to play against the Miami Dolphins. Well, they're hosting the Miami Dolphins on a Thursday night game, a game that I think it's going to be a lot closer than what Packers fans probably expect. I think the Miami Dolphins are also going to do a very good season this year. I think they're going to have a very good season. I think it'll be a big of a challenge, but I do think the Packers pull off like a 3-point win here, roughly a 3-4 point win here, and the Packers get a nice win to go back on track. However, they get their fifth and last loss of the season week 14 as they're going to Ford Field in Detroit against the Detroit Lions, their second divisional game against the Lions, and the Lions get revenge on it. Packers not really being able to do much against it. The Lions get the win. Packers get the loss. After that, they're flying to Seattle against the Seahawks. Again, that I think when doing this, I thought it was going to be a close game. I really do. And doing this prediction, I almost had Seattle getting this win, but however, I do think the Packers are going to win. But Seattle, JSN, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett still. You still have Walker. They're using a bit more Charbonnet. I mean, they still have these weapons, these players that could the defense that could be a problem for the Packers. However, I think the Packers defense will also be able to kind of put that pressure on rushing the QB and be able to hold down at least DK. I think as I've seen JSN last season, trying to force him the ball quite a more. Obviously, I think by now they're going to use him so much more. He's going to be the wide receiver 2 for them. He's going to get quite more looks. Jair just on DK. We could worry about the other two for a bit. How's the front line going to do being able to hold down Walker? I think we'll see. That's why I think it's going to be a close game, but Packers are going to be able to do it offensively is what both sides are going to end up winning the ball. This one's where it needs the effort on both sides. Then after that, the New Orleans Saints, who I don't think has had a great offseason, had a great draft adding and losing players and things going on with the New Orleans Saints. I don't think it's going to be a challenge for the Green Bay Packers. This is a win for the Packers. Now, in this scenario, coming towards the end of the season here, on my book, on what I have written down, I have the Green Bay Packers getting a win against the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. So I'll just cover the last two, week 17, week 18, both divisional games. I have them winning against the Vikings, winning against the Bears. I have a 50-50 chance on the Viking part, on the game against the Vikings, that Packers could lose it. All on depending on Matt LaFleur and the team says, you know what, we're in the playoffs by now. You know, we don't want players to get injured. We don't really want to set that up. You know, we'll let our starters play a quarter, maybe two, and then after that, you know, you guys sit out. We don't need you guys getting hurt. However, I think that's a bit early for that. And I think because of this, the Packers will have their starters going. Now the question is how the Vikings going to look by this time. I think by now Jordan Addison should be back. Hawkinson should be back. See how, you know, the connection already with Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson. Plus, Aaron Jones already, you know, established is out there with Ty Chandler backing him up and the running backs. The defense of Vikings should be much better by this time. Should be. I do think it's like a 51-49 opportunity. I do have it possible Vikings win. I'm going to stick to what I have right now and have the Packers winning this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings do come out with this one. For the Bears, I have the Packers winning. Yes, now this is more likely a scenario where they probably have their starters for the first quarter or two. And then, you know, hey, we have playoffs. Sit them out and everything. The only thing that might change that scenario is one, the records, or at least division records of the Lions and the Packers fighting for that first seed of the NFC North. you need as many wins as you could get overall, even if it's divisional win. Obviously, the Lions have the overall better record, so most likely they're going to get it. But again, like I mentioned earlier, it's the point of the Lions just not going to put their starters, so the Vikings end up getting a win. So Packers are going to try to get that win against Chicago. What's going to go, how they're going to be looking at it here. It's another one that could go 50-50 only because will the Packers put their starters? Will the Bears put their starters? Will the Bears, put their starters in that they're going to risk Keenan Allen possibly getting hurt, DJ Moore possibly getting hurt, Roma Dunze? I think Roma Dunze will play to get a lot more reps, get practice. Will Caleb Williams play more or risking the possibility of him getting hurt? Will Swift play more, the possibility of getting hurt? So it's a lot of that. Will they play him or not? I think a lot of it just depends on how the season's looking. And if it's a clear cut, Packers got the number 2 seed of the NFC, sorry, the number 2 of the NFC North, then I don't think Packers put their starters on this game. The Bears probably won't, probably will. Who knows? But those are the ones that possibly flips. But keeping that in mind, overall, like I said, I'm gonna stick to the Packers getting the wins here. Packers overall record is looking at a 2-12-5 overall with the 5-1 division, with the possibility of it being a 11-6 if the Vikings get the win with the 4-2 overall, and if the Vikings and Chicago get the last 2 wins, then which I don't think is gonna happen, it would be a 10-7 with the 3-3. But that one thing's gonna happen. So most likely right now I have it at 12-5 with the 5-1, with a possible 11-6 with the 4-2. So moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, I have them as third, and that's because how I had this set up. This was how I had all this set. It was prior to the McCarthy injury and Jordan Addison getting hurt, but I do gonna stick with it. You can see why I'm gonna stick with it. A lot of people have the Bears coming third, and I don't. And I'll give my reason why. We'll get to it. But going with the Vikings, last season went 7-10, and this time it's easier to tie to 7 wins. So they got wins against the Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears, San Francisco 49ers, Green Bay Packers, Atlanta Falcons, New Orleans Saints, and the Las Vegas Raiders. They did not make the playoffs last season. Now this year, looking at a bit different season. They start off the season in the Big Apple against the New York Giants, and I think it would be, well, now this is the thing, now without Jordan Addison. With Jordan Addison, I think this will be a nice win for the Minnesota Vikings. Does it change the outcome? Are the Giants that good? We've seen the hard knocks. They added players on defense and offense. They added Malik Neighbors from the draft. They're sticking with Daniel Jones. They lost Saquon Barkley. How's this team looking? I think getting to this, it's really just going to be a lot of running the ball for the Minnesota Vikings with Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. Some short slants or some possible slants that Sam Darnold could get in that connection with Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson. Obviously, they're going to have wide receiver 3 and 4. So we're going to see them get looks, but no Hawkinson, no Addison. How's the team going to look? It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a very 3-point type of game. But I'm going to stick to the Vikings getting the win in New York on this one. Then after that, they're going to host the San Francisco 49ers. There's no question, no reason really to talk about it. Vikings get their first loss of the season. And it doesn't get much better after that. After that, they host the Houston Texans. It's not going to be a good game for the Vikings. That's the second loss of the season. Week 4, the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. Maybe by now Jordan Addison will be back if his ankle injury isn't all that bad. Maybe TJ Hawkinson will be back. Not trusting on it yet on that week exactly when it comes to for sure those players. Packers getting the win, as I said earlier. Vikings getting their third loss of the season. Now, by now, week 5, most likely Addison will be back. Hawkins will be back. However, we're looking at a new Jets team. They added O-line to help out and protect Aaron Rodgers, especially Smith coming from the Cowboys. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Tyler Conklin as a tight end, who have this Jets defense, which wasn't bad at all. Really, they weren't bad at all. You really need Aaron Rodgers healthy, and with the healthy Aaron Rodgers, this Viking, they know how they played against Aaron Rodgers for so many years there in the NFC North. They know what's going to go happen. I really don't think the Vikings will be able to do much on this game. I have the Vikings getting their fourth loss of the season. Now here comes a very important bye week. Vikings need the rest. Week 6 is a bit early. They need to look back at what they need to work on. With the 5 games, they only have 1 win. It's not looking so good. They need this rest. By now, the team should be healthy at least and kind of getting back on track of where they need to be. But it doesn't help out that they start off week 7 hosting the Detroit Lions, and it's the Detroit Lions. I said how good I think they're going to be. The players that they have, really, the Lions are going to, still going to get the win. Vikings get another loss to the season. It's not looking so good. After that, they come to LA, just like the Packers did. They come to LA to play the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams team, by now, I'm expecting to be healthy. This Vikings team, I'm expecting to at least be solid and healthy as well. I think it's going to be a very good game. We're going to see a much better Vikings team here. However, I think the Rams will still be a better team. I think the Rams will win by a touchdown, giving the Vikings another loss to the season. However, the Vikings losing streak ends right there as the Indianapolis Colts come in. Again, if the Vikings are fully healthy, I think it's going to be a great matchup between the two teams. You're going to have Sam Darnold, who's a veteran, you could say by now in the league, but Anthony Richardson getting his second year. You got Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell. You're going to have Jonathan Taylor. And then you're going to see, Jordan Addison back. Hawkinson should be back. Justin Jefferson, still the star receiver, is going to be there. And Aaron Jones. I do think the Vikings do just enough to get about like a 7-point win. The Vikings get their second win of the season. But it doesn't help out. Right after that, they'll be going to Jacksonville. Face the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, I think it's going to be a bit much for the defense. Although they added Dallas Turner to the defense, which was a great pick that they traded up for, even after getting J.J. McCarthy. Traded up for that pick, got Turner. Really, it's going to help on that defensive side. I think it's going to be a bit much for that defense. Jacksonville's going to get the win, and Minnesota gets another loss to the season. However, they're going to fly to Tennessee right after. It should be a nice morale boost, nice morale win. They should be able to handle this Tennessee offense, and the Vikings get their third win of the season. Then after that, I think it's going to be an underdog win. It's going to be an underdog win because then the Minnesota Vikings are going to Chicago to Soldier Field, in which I had the Minnesota Vikings losing. It's going to be a win for the Chicago Bears. Yes, this is the first time they're going to see Caleb Williams. This is the first time they're going to see this whole offensive team with the Bears having actually a very solid defense last year after trading for Sweats and the players that they had. Now that they added Bayard, pronouncing it correct, Bayard, the Bears are going to have a nice defense. I think the Vikings aren't going to be completely ready for it. I have the Chicago Bears getting a win. Vikings taking another loss on this one. I don't know if you want to say it's an underdog win for the Bears. Maybe you expect the Bears to win this one. But a little nice morale boost to it, really. I have the Arizona Cardinals going to take a loss in Minnesota, as the Vikings are going to get another win. Again, talked about the Cardinals, talked about the team that they're finding themselves. I think the Cardinals could give the Vikings a challenge, but I think the Vikings should get the job done. Now, week 14, this one, I'm a bit iffy. I will make the decision right now as we're talking about it. Week 14, the Vikings are going to host the Atlanta Falcons. I'm actually high on the Atlanta Falcons this season compared to last season. I think they're going to do so much better with the additional Kirk Cousins. It's going to open the playbook a lot more. He's a much better passer. How is this Minnesota defense going to hold against the Falcons? Personally, I have the Minnesota Vikings getting a win on this one. But they're the underdog. They're the underdog win. So it's just a feel I have on this one. I don't know why. I'm going to stick to it, what I have right now. It's a 51-49 type of chance for me. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I get this wrong and the Falcons win, because I think they're going to be so good this year. And how's that Vikings team going to hold on? But I think this game being at home for the Vikings, I think the Vikings are going to pull off a nice upset. And I think the Vikings get the win. Week 15, now they host the Chicago Bears. Their second look at the division rivals. So far, they finally faced all three division rivals by this time. Now they're going to the second chance around. This I think the Vikings will be able to game plan better for Caleb Williams, for Keenan Allen, for DJ Moore, for Roma Dunze, for Swift. It's if the defense is able to pull it off. I'm gonna go because I think this is very fair and even um, on it, and it's more on the Bears that will lose this game. I think the Vikings get a win here. Yeah, I just think the Vikings are going to get the win here. They're going to plan much better. I think hopefully the defense is going to be able to lock down and these wide receivers, which are great talented receivers. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a very close game. I think Vikings do get the win. However, it does end right there as I have it as the last win for the Minnesota Vikings of the season because after that they'll be going to Seattle. I think Seattle is going to just be a slightly better team. I think it'll be a very good game, very good matchup. I think Seattle just gets a very close win on this one. And then like I mentioned with the Green Bay Packers, depending on how the season's going on for the Packers, how it's going for the Vikings, who's going to play what, that one's it's still a loss for the Vikings I have here, but it's still 50-50. And this scenario is the same for the Detroit Lions. Even though this game is at Ford Field, are Detroit Lions already secured the first spot in the NFC North? Are they secured the first seed in the NFC Conference? And if they are not, maybe they're still fighting for it. And this last game is what matters. So they might want to just put it in their starters just to get the win and get it out of the way so they could get that first seed. Or is it one where the Lions are like, we don't want our starters to get hurt. We'll take that second seed in the NFC Conference and we'll play that first week. What's this scenario looking like? So there's a good possibility the Vikings do end up winning the last two games, but it's really hard because we're trying to see where these teams are landing at the end. So we're going to see that. So at the end of it, I have the Minnesota Vikings going 6-11 overall with a 1-5 record in the conference. But there's a lot of changes. There's the possibilities, the last two games of the wins and the Falcon one. So it could be 3 more wins for the Vikings, or it could be 1 more loss for the Vikings. Who really knows and how is that going to look? So that's just my prediction on this one. All right, guys, we made it to the last team of the division. It's getting pretty hot right here for me, as you can see, but we made it to the end. The Chicago Bears. Yes, I get a lot of people had the Chicago Bears fighting for me, even second in the division or even third, thinking they're going to beat the Packers and the Vikings. And you'll see why I give them the records, and you heard already what I have. So my reason is this. Yes, they added a lot of wins. Yes, the Bears have done a really, really nice job in this offseason, adding free agency weapons, making trades, and even drafting. They did a really great job. My thing is two things. One, the Bears will be the Bears. And yes, it might be a dumb saying to say, like, oh, really, you're going to say it? But truly, look at the history of the Bears. They have their opportunities. They have done really good things. Lost in another Super Bowl. They only have one, but they've lost in it. They've had quarterbacks, and it's just they move on from quarterbacks. They move on from coaches quickly. They move on from GMs quickly. They don't stick to developing one. They don't stick to one team as well. And sometimes when they do, sometimes it doesn't work out. That's why I say the Bears will be the Bears. And no matter how good they do, they still end up losing to the Packers. They still end up losing to the Vikings. Something depends. Because last year, they got a win on the Lions, but they still end up losing to the Lions now. And that's what I mean. That there's always a tendency for the Bears to find a way to mess something up, something that's going good for them. They mess it up. And now we see they're sticking to this GM, this front office. Now they're sticking to this coaching staff. Now they're sticking to this team as they're actually building something. My second point of this is their first year playing together. You can't have the expectation of them to even make the playoffs this year, in my opinion, and be mad when they don't because they didn't reach your expectation. But it's like, why are you putting this expectation on this team if this is their first year together? That's my thing. That's why I'm not saying everyone believes in the Bears now. I'm not saying everyone thinks that. I'm just saying for those who do, it doesn't make sense to me. Because we're seeing Keenan Allen going into a new A new offense after being with the Chargers for so long. DJ Moore now is going to have to share some reps with Keenan Allen. Roma Dunze, a rookie. Caleb Williams, a rookie. How is he going to fit it into all of this? How is he going to progress throughout the season? DeAndre Swift, he's new. He's going to help out a lot. Yes, the Bears defense is really good. They're going to do really good, but how's this offense going to score points? How are they going to do this season? That's my only point of this and why I think they're going to be fourth, but they're not going to be the worst team in the league. They're not. But this is why. So, like I mentioned earlier, how they did last year. Last year they went 7-10, with their 7 wins being to the Washington Commanders, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Carolina Panthers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Atlanta Falcons. Now let's look at how they're doing this year. This year I think it's going to be um, a nice start off for Caleb Williams, for Roma Duzzi to get their feet wet, especially for Caleb Williams mainly because Rome is wide receiver 3, still getting into it. But for the team, the defense, everyone's going good. I think it's nice morale start for the season. They're hosting the Tennessee Titans. That's going to be a win for the Chicago Bears. But after that, they go off the rails as they play the Houston Texans in Houston. Like I said, with the other teams are going to struggle. The Bears are definitely going to struggle. I have the Houston Texans giving the Bears the first loss of the season. Then right after that, they played the Indianapolis Colts again, a game that I think will be evenly matched because of a lot of scenarios that's going on. However, just Bears defense is going to come up big. How is this Colts defense going to come up? A little biasy on my end here. As a UCLA fan, the Indianapolis Colts used the first round pick on UCLA edge and QB rusher, Liatu. He went to UCLA. He knows what it's like to hunt down Caleb Williams for 2 seasons. He's going to do it again for a 3rd season. I'm not saying he's the only player on defense. Obviously, there's more better players. Latu, so he's a rookie. So, how's that going to look? I just want to point that out. But how's the defense for the Colts going to go on? I think the Colts are going to pull off like a 2-3 point win on this one. So Bears get another loss to the season here. And then after that, they host the LA Rams, who I think is a much better team than they are. Just overall, again, the defense might be a problem for the Rams, but I think the Rams are going to be able to overcome it. They get a loss for the Chicago Bears. But week 5 comes around, a morale boost here in this game because it's another easy game. The Carolina Panthers will be going into Chicago, into Soldier Field, which the Bears should and will get a win here, getting their 2nd win of the season. And then right here, week 6, it says that the Bears are hosting, but see, it's actually not going to be in Chicago. But the Chicago Bears are going to be playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a game right before bye week. You want to try to keep some momentum going with a win. However, I don't think the Bears are going to get it. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars cuts it right there. The Bears get a 2nd loss going into week 7's bye week. To get the rest, they fix on what they need to work on slightly a little early, but still nice rest for a time being. And they get right back into it as they are going to Washington or to Virginia to play the Washington Commanders, a game where you see Jaden Daniels, the 2nd overall pick, playing the 1st overall pick of Caleb Williams. Washington still trying to rebuild itself, find itself around. Curtis Samuel's gone, but you still have Scary Terry, and you still have Dotson there. I think it's going to be a nice morale boost, again, coming off of the bye week. It's going to be a nice win for the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears and the defense especially going to come up big. Bears get the win right here. Not only that, I think a very close game, a very evenly matched game by week 9, where the Bears play the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. I think it's going to be a very low. Actually, no, I think it's going to be a mid-scoring game. I do think the Bears are going to get the win right here. And then to continue the winning train here, the Bears are hosting the New England Patriots, who I think is going to have possibly the worst season for them this year, them or the Carolina Panthers. England's looking to kind of restart anew, so it's going to be a win for the Chicago Bears. Now, week 11, they get their first divisional rival game. Of course, it gets the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be in Chicago, Soldier Field. I don't think Caleb Williams ready. The defense might be ready to go against this Packers offense, and how is the defense going to hold on to their 3-4 wide receivers, to Musgrave as their tight end, to Josh Jacobs, the running back, AJ Dillon still the running back, Jordan Love making these passes? I I think it's going to be a bit overwhelming towards the second half of the game for the Bears. Packers are going to come in, get this win because the Packers own the Bears. But aside from that, the Packers can come and get the win. For the Packers are going to get the win. So Chicago gets their another loss, ending their 3-game win streak right there. But right after that, the Bears get a nice jump back onto the right tracks here. As I said before, this game in Chicago, once again, the Bears will be hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Again, I think the Bears will get the win on. So it's going to be a nice one. But it's looking very tough for the Bears for the following next 3 games because after that, actually, it's going to be tough for the rest of the season because I think that Minnesota Vikings Week 12 game might be the last win for the Chicago Bears in the regular season because right after that, you have the Detroit Lions in Detroit. I've said it already, Detroit's getting the win. They're not losing 2 games. They're not losing 1 game to the Chicago Bears this season. Detroit will get the win, the first win of the season. After that, they will also then be going to Santa Clara to play the 49ers. No question, Bears lose. That's another loss. Week 15, by now, I think the Minnesota Vikings have been able to scheme much better for the Chicago Bears, knowing what they have to work on. These games in Minnesota, I think the Minnesota Vikings get the win. Chicago gets another loss. Same thing for the Lions here. Second time in a row. Again, we're getting to that point where the Packers and the Lions, trying to see where they're standing in the playoffs, how they're looking at the NFC North, NFC Conference. All of this, Detroit needs all the wins they could get. They're not going to let go of the gas. They're going to beat the Chicago Bears. Bears getting another loss. Seattle as well. I think as much of a close game Seattle's going to have with the NFC North, I think Seattle is going to be able to get this win here. So Chicago does get a loss, but it's a very close loss as well. I think it's 3-4, maybe a touchdown max a touchdown for Seattle. But Chicago gets a loss here. And in the Green Bay Packers, like I mentioned earlier, that one, I'm sticking to the guns. The Packers are going to get the win because of how the season's going to go. Packers get the win. So at the end of it, I have the Chicago Bears going 6-11 overall with a 1-5 record. And really, what's going to change much of that is for themselves, for the record coming wise, is the second game against the Minnesota Vikings if they're able to pull off that win. The game against the Indianapolis Colts if they're able to get that win. And depending on the last game of the season against the Green Bay Packers. But also, what would possibly move the Bears up to the 3rd spot in the NFC North is the Vikings, how they're going to do with their games and their injuries and everything going on. So it's going to be very interesting to see. There's that possibility that the Bears do end up getting 3rd, but as of right now, I have it not. But damn, that's a while, guys. But yeah, this is 1 of 8 because I'm doing all the divisions. Starting off here with the NFC North division. As you notice, I pretty much just had the same teams as last season because that's exactly how even with the additions and subtractions of things, I don't think it's enough to move like Bears to 2nd, Vikings to 1st, obviously Lions to 3rd, Packers to 4th, stuff like that. I don't think it's enough. I think the division's going to stick to the same again this season. But in the future, we might see a change because the Lions are looking good. Hopefully, it can stick to it. Packers are looking good as well. But now the Bears are looking good. Like I said, the defense are looking good. Now, the organization is trusting this front office, trusting this coaching staff. Hopefully, they're going to develop Caleb Williams. Hopefully, they can stick to keeping these weapons around them. It's not like Keenan Allen has so many years more. DJ Moore just signed the extension, so he's going to be around. Roma Dunes is going to be a nice weapon in addition. So, and of course, you have Cole Kmet there. So, it's really interesting. I think sooner or later, we're going to see the Bears going 3rd, fighting for that 2nd spot. Vikings are looking down right now just because of injuries and the running back situation and how they're going to improve themselves to get much stronger. So this is very interesting, but it's going to be very cool to see this season. So, but yeah, guys, long episode, but thanks again for watching. Silent Thoughts. I'm Joe Galvez. See you guys next time.